Oh, I'm sorry. I did not put the. I'm sorry. I did not have the thing on the screen. I did not even realize that I wasn't on the screen. Thank you so much for telling me. I didn't see that there was no video. Thank you, Slimy Show, for telling me that there is no video. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm not having technical difficulties. In fact, I'm here. I just did not put myself on the screen. Just realizing. Thank you so much. And let me begin again. Then, since that I was not on the screen. Thank you so much for joining. I was talking, but I did not realize that I was not on the screen. This topic, AI UFOs disclosure, right? For decades, the topic of UFOs and artificial intelligence, one was often dismissed as science fiction of our everyday lives. Today, however, these intersecting exposure. Governments are releasing information about unidentified phenomena. AI is transforming everything from national security to science, and many people are asking an important question: what are they not telling us? And this afternoon, we're not here to claim we have all the answers. We're here to examine the evidence, ask thought, and explore what is for our privacy, our freedoms, and the future of humanity. So that's what we're here to discuss in this afternoon's program as we go through these very difficult questions. Yes, yeah, no, yeah, thank you so much, Simon Show. I thought that, can you hear me? Please let me know if you can hear me. Greetings, Frederick Jamat. Make sure you're hearing me. Do we have audience? You hear me at all? Am I not being heard? We have audio issues. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, guys? Oh, I'm choppy. Wow. And come back in then. Let me sign out and come back in. Okay. Let me sign out and come. All right. Can you hear me now? Are you hearing me better? Can you hear me better? Is the audio better now? Is it better? Is it no? Is the audio better? Can you let me know if it's the audio is better now? Hello. Okay, good. I'll continue as it is. Okay, so we're looking at this very important question right now. Let's begin the discussion. And thank you for your feedback, because I did not know I wasn't even on the screen and the audio was not working well. So let's now begin our discussion. And since we are about starting late because of what was happening. Okay, so the AI, UFOs, and disclosure, what are they not telling us? That's a topic of our discussion. And, you know, we have the AI, UFOs, disclosure. UFOs were often dismissed as conspiracy theories or science fiction. That is what people used to tell us, that they're just science fiction and figment of our imagination. Today, governments, military officials, scientists, and technology readers are discussing UAPs, and that's what we call unidentified anomalous phenomena. At the same time, artificial intelligence is rapidly transforming, and we can see that surveillance, intelligence gathering, warfare, information control, and human decision making, we are seeing where AI has taken over all of these things. And they're telling us that UFOs also exist. So we are not even sure if UFOs are also involved in warfare. Could be, we don't know. Now, why are questions about UFOs, AI, and secrecy becoming more mainstream at the same time? Why do you think now we are suddenly hearing about all of these things at the same time? UFOs, AI, thank you so much. Okay, good. I'm happy now that thank you so much for joining, and thank you for confirming that the audio is doing better. So we're asking the question, why do you think now that we're starting seeing a burst in information about AI, UFOs, and all of these strange things that are happening in our world, which maybe yesterday, if you and I were alive, we would have said, no, these things could not happen. They are science fiction. If you were to tell somebody in the 1980s and the 1990s and even early 2000s that we would have been having AI that would actually be writing letters for you, doing people's term papers and lots of things, you would perhaps say, no, that is science fiction. That could never, humans would never be able to come up with such inventions, even though we 1984, but many of us who read 1984, we thought that it still was strange. It might have been something that he was imagining. But do you know that many of the people who write books like 1984, George Orwell's and these people, that they have insights? They're part of the system. They were part of the system. They were informed. They had inner knowledge of what they were working on in the system so that they could be able to control humanity. Remember now, the purpose of 1984 was that he was writing a book that he suggested that in the future, human societies would have evolved in the sense that it would lead to tyranny. So it would have political tyranny, all types, all forms of tyranny, which we are seeing now that we are moving into that era, into that age. And many people are just living with it. I think that it has become normalized because of the internet. So we don't really think about it because we've been hearing about it for many years now. And we are in the era of technology. And many of us, we're not yet threatened. We don't feel like our lives are yet threatened, except for the pandemic, right? During the pandemic, that was different. But after a while, we saw that some of the policies, the protocols were relaxed. So people have become now more relaxed and think that the government is normal and things are moving normally as we think they should. But do we think that at this point in time, when they're telling us about UFOs, what do you think, in your mind, what do you think UFOs are? Let me hear from you guys in the chat. What do you think UFOs are? Do you think UFOs are real? Or do you think they're just a figment of people's imagination? That people see these flying saucers. And by the way, as I was saying before, before you came on the live, well, some of you joined the live, I was suggesting to you that use like flying saucers. So some of these things are not new. Some of these inventions were already around during World War II. But they're now just being made visible to the human eyes. So I'm actually saying USA reverse engineered crafts. Right. Do you think that they are real? Or do you think that they are just something that people see and it's a figment of their imagination, something that they're conceptualizing in their minds, and that is, we can just not think, we don't have to think about it. Yes, I think that they're real. Right? I think that they're real. But what are they? If they're real, are they inventions? Are they human inventions, or are they, you say it's high tech, all right? It's high tech, good. But when you say high tech now, and we're actually seeing flying saucers in your house, and you're seeing all of these flying saucers and so forth, what would you do? Would you think that this is just something that you should take for granted, or something that is real? They had anti-gravity tech for a while now. Correct. And I think, as I was saying, Simon Show, they had many of these items actually were made during World War II. And Hitler, by the way, used a lot of them. And that's why he was feared. And now that we're moving into this sort of tech era, and the technology in terms of a tech tyranny, if you will, we can see where these things are now resurfacing, and we have to be careful of them. Now we have here Trevor saying depends on it if the question is referring to, or if you are referring to just the technology, just as the flying saucers. I like what you're bringing up here. You're making now the question more technical. Are UFOs aliens, and is there a difference? I think that's what we now need to say. Is there a difference between UFOs and aliens? To me, I don't see the difference, but maybe scientifically there is a difference. And if there is a difference, can you explain that to me? What's the difference in your imagination, your mind rather, or according to the facts? According to the facts, what is the difference between UFOs and aliens or technical invention? That's Trevor will respond as we go. Fazi here that I'm not. It's not showing on the screen what's going on here. Yeah, I have seen scriptures at the Bible where it says a wheel within a wheel in Ezekiel. Some may be human inventions, or some could be vehicles from the scriptures. Now, that's a very important question you're making. If those of you who read your Bibles, we understand that they're angels and they exist in the spiritual realm. The wheels that the Bible was speaking about in Ezekiel are really angels, right? Do you know that God's throne is not a wheel as we have wheel on people's throne? His wheels are angels, living creatures. They're living beings. That's what the Bible said, that they're living creatures. Now that take him wherever he wants to go, right? But the fact of the matter is that these beings are in a higher capacity, a higher realm than we are. The Bible did say that there was war in heaven, and Lucifer, what we call now the devil, he and his angels who rebelled against God's government, they were cast out, and they were cast out to this earth. Now they exist, they are here, and we call them demons, right? We say the devil and we say demons. That's when we say demons, we refer to, beings that belong, that the devil himself control. Now the fact is that these beings, they exist, but we can't see them. So are these, as you're saying, Fazi, could these aliens and UFOs be these beings who are actually, because angels have, by the way, angels have the capacity to transform their bodies into anything. So they can appear in the form of humans, they can appear in the form of creatures like a lion, a tiger, a bear, whatever, right? So they have that sort of power. That is how they were made. We can't do that, but they can walk through walls, and they can do lots of things. The angels also move at the speed of light, so they move quickly from one place to the next. So when people say that they're seeing flying saucers and seeing other beings that don't look like us, could it be that they are seeing angels? That's a question that would want to explore also. Now, Stephen is saying, say a real, and you will have to put that Bible in Jesus into question. Say a real, and you'll have to put that Bible into question. Well, the fact is that, yeah, that is something that you have to for yourself, Stephen. But those of us who believe it, we understand that it is real. And a lot of things that it says we are actually seeing, particularly in prophecy, we're seeing these things coming to light. And that is one of the things, is the whole matter of the aliens that they're talking about. We know that these are not creatures coming from other planets that are not living with us, that they are literal beings that are in probably demons that people are seeing. Now, Pedro is saying, when I go to another country, I become an alien. Right. That's an interesting question too. Right. That's another word that they call us alien. If you're in another country or foreign to the country, they call us aliens. Right. So that's also another meaning of the word. But the fact of the matter, the alien that we're talking about now in this context, Pedro, is the alien that people are saying other beings, other forms that are not humans. At least you're human. If you go to Spain, you're human, but you're not Spanish. So they're going to call you an alien, but you are real. You're a real person. You're a human being. You're like them, only that you don't share the same nationality. But the aliens that they're talking about, these are creatures they're suggesting that don't look like humans, are distinct from us, and they live on other planets. That's what they're telling us in the science. Now, Slimy Show is saying, if this tech was around during the Bible times, you will be approaching approaching confidence zone soon. Well, these things exist. People are seeing have always existed, apparitions that they thought were not of this world. Yeah, so this is something that's new. Remember now that even Solomon said that there's nothing new under the sun. It's just that it takes on a sort of discourse in our times now as we're dealing with technology that we're dealing with right now. The fact of the matter is that this whole matter of strange beings coming from other planets, people have had those sort of impressions since antiquity, right? This is not new, right? But this is something that your Bible beliefs will be challenged. Well, everything can be challenged. That's what we're here to do. The science is challenged, right? The AI is being challenged as we speak. The whole matter of the pandemic was challenged. So everything can be challenged. Nothing, and not even truth can be challenged. But at the end of the day, does it remain truth? That's what we have to. Nothing is wrong with challenging anything. That's what we're here to challenge the standard beliefs and to make sense out of nonsense, right? But everything can be challenged. You could challenge you in terms of your father. Even your father can be challenged, right? Then technically, all those stories in the Bible can be explained with high technology. Can they? Can technology explain everything? Do you think science and technology can explain every reality in our world today? Let me ask a question. Do you think, and it's a very good point you're raising, Simon Show, do you think science and technology can explain everything, every crisis, every problems, all human reality as it exists today? Yeah? I would like to ask a question. Can you hear me? Hope you're hearing me? Can you hear me well? Hopefully you're hearing me. Marie, good evening. Good evening, and thank you for joining. Can you hear me now? Make sure. Okay. Now, Stephen says we question certain events in the good book. Yes, you are allowed to question, and that's why it's a matter of the Protestant Reformation. For those of you who don't know, the people who call themselves Christians during the time of the Dark Ages, all right, they believed through the Catholic Church we had the period of what you call ages. That was when the Bible could not be questioned. Whatever the Catholic Church said, you had to go by the dictates of what the Pope says. Then you had people like the likes of the what's his name again, from Germany, who started the Protestant Reformation, right? And through then he says that we can question. The Bible says too that we should prove all things and to hold fast to that which is good. So even the Bible teaches us to question. So not everything that you hear, even in Paul encourages us to question. And we should get the Bereans, who when Paul talked to them and told them, they search for themselves. Everyone to search for yourself. Don't just listen to what your teacher tells you. You have to search for yourselves. The problem is many of us have not searched. So we talk, but we don't know, right? So that is what we need to do. Now, yeah, so we have, yes, thank you. So you're hearing. Let's continue with the I want to hear what others have to say. Trevor is saying there is a metaphysical reality which we don't see, right? The CERN, the DARPA, etc., have all dabbled in and especially in war times. There will be a disclosure date to the public. Now, by the way, I don't know if many of you who read about people who are involved in the Illuminati and also these participants or ex-participants, whistleblowers, if you will, they have come out and they have talked about things what they went through when they were high Freemasons, right? Or they belong to the Church of the Devil. There are people who also belong to the Church of the Devil. You also have those who belong to the music industry. If you read also and listen, there are lots of YouTube videos about the music industry. You will understand, and Hollywood in general, and the tech world in California, you will realize that these people are in communication with people of beings in another realm, if you will. They are, right? And in fact, some of the music that they sing, they get their inspiration speaking to these beings. And let me tell you something, for many of them, when they want to extricate themselves, because these beings can be very dangerous. You know, we're entering a very dangerous realm, and people don't understand, in which we are going to be interacting with beings that we have no reason to be interacting with. And that is why you're seeing, so sometimes when people, you know, when they sing certain songs, when they're part of certain organizations, that they evoke a certain spirit, and sometimes that spirit can destroy them. And there is a young man, well, I would say young because in his 30s right now, and he's from Angola, and he was a part of some of those high-level free fighters, and he came out and he said what all about. And he was also involved in the political realm. The political realm. So he would go from country to country, and he would encourage governments to do some of the most evil things you can ever imagine. And he said that when he came out, because, you know, he was free, according to what he says, his testimonies, that spirits came back because they wanted to hold on to him, and they pinned him to a wall, what he said, because they wanted to kill him, because these beings are not beings that want to give you freedom. And that is why when we talk about AI, when we talk about UFOs, we're not just talking about ordinary creatures here. We're talking about some powerful beings, more powerful than we can even imagine. Now, Marie saying, I will be honest, the 66 book Bible was imposed on me since childhood, but I believe that we were deprived of scripture. Everyone knows that verses, chapters, and entire books have been removed. Yes, and there are some people who say that. I believe that the 66 books that are there are the ones that God wants us to have. Imagine if you were to have, you're writing a book, right? And you are trying to compile a book that gives you a chronological sequence, and that is, what should I say now? It binds together. It's coherent. That's the word I was looking for. In a coherent way. And I don't think that there is any book on the planet which gives us history from the beginning of the world to the end of the world, and it does so in that chronological order. You're not finding any book like that. Even historians, you can have several people writing about the same topic, and they all come, even though they are knowledgeable about the topic, but they're all disjointed. And this one says, and that one says, and they don't agree. And when you go to conferences, they all, oh no, that's not. And see how these professors argue, right, amongst themselves, because this one is a scholar and that one is a scholar, and they don't agree. But you had different authors in the Bible, and yet still they were able to come up with something coherent that man cannot do. You cannot have a book. You will never have a book in which you see different authors coming together, and even though they're expressing themselves differently, but agreeing on the essential points. And I think that those are what the 66 books do give. Are there other things we don't know? I'm sure. It goes in and out still. Oh wow. Are you hearing me, guys? Am I being heard? I'm not experiencing anything here, to my knowledge. How can we have the I see what you're saying. Why is now? Let me change it. Oh, okay. All right, can you hear me now? Am I better? Better now? Better? Okay. Somebody was asking the question, how can we have the right context with verses missing? Okay, good. Let me see something. The Bible has a lot of information and knowledge for us to understand. First, the Bible was not written for just get knowledge. The Bible was written for us, yes, to understand what is happening in the world and what God is doing to save us. Right? That is so. God is not here to tell us everything that exists in the world. Just like science is not here to tell us. We don't know many things out of science. We don't know, but we can only be exposed to that which is relevant for us in decisions. I don't know everything. How can you know everything? How can you vote for Miss Mia Motley, or how can you make a decision whether to accept? Hello? Hello? Have you heard what I said there? I might have to cancel the live. I might have to cancel the live. Can you hear me now? Why they hid the book of Enoch from us? What I'm suggesting to you, the Bible was written not for you to know. You know, one of the things about Eve, when she was created, and that was how sin came into the world. She wanted, hopefully you're hearing me right now, she wanted to know everything, and even things that God did not want her to know. Everything that we want to know might not be good knowledge for us. And even when we were younger, sometimes our parents who were wiser than we are, they guarded us from knowing certain knowledge that we shouldn't know, right? Because guess what? They know that if you know that knowledge, it's going to hurt you. And that's exactly what happened to Eve, Adam and Eve, particularly Eve. She wanted to know why God had told her not to eat of the fruit, of a forbidden fruit. But God had given her enough on which to rest her faith. She wasn't in need of anything, but she wanted to know more than she should know, and look at what happened. Look at what happened because that that she wanted to know. The same work of the who are Freemasons and so forth. They claim that they have hidden knowledge, access to hidden knowledge, right, of the world. And that's why many people join these organizations, hoping that they will gain access to these knowledge. And what happens to them eventually? Right? They are destroyed. So we have to be careful of what we think we want to know. Can you hear me? I think I'm not being heard. I think I'm talking to the wall. Can you hear me? Am I being heard? Hello? 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 Can you hear me? Let me see if I can be heard. I don't know. Still not hearing me. It's still not hearing me. You're still not hearing me? Hello? It's good now. It's good? Okay, good. All right. Good. Go back. Let me go to your questions. I'm sorry. I'm because that I'm let me see if let me go how versus missing. Yeah, we can have that context if God has given us enough, because that He has given us enough base our faith on. That's in the same way I was saying, Marie, that we've never had anything on everything. You don't have enough on science. We don't have enough information on the body, how the body works, do we? We don't. Right? But we have enough so that we can make wise decisions in terms of treating our bodies when illnesses occur. But we never have enough of everything, right? So let's not judge the Bible that what we have enough. God has given us enough on how we can be saved from sin, and that is essential point of the Bible. That how can we be saved from sin? It's not about giving you lots of knowledge to run away with, to and think that you are superior because you have knowledge, all right? Because right now in the world, we have lots of knowledge, and what is happening? We're confused, right? We don't even know what we're doing. So the 66 books of the Bible contain sufficient information on which to base your faith, right? Trust God, and you know that He's the creator, so He knows how much knowledge we need to have. Now, Clive, why they hid the book of Enoch from us? It's not hid. They did not hide the book of Enoch. The people who want to read Enoch, now you can go and read it. It's available, you know. These books are available, but they did not think that according to the canon of the 6 books, that some of those information actually cohere. Understand that a lot of times when we look at the Bible was written what? Centuries ago? And there were people who would have thought to distort some of the things that were in the Bible, right? And the Holy Canon. So some of those things had to be read, and they thought that some of these things were not appropriate to be put as a part of the canon. When you're publishing a book, you have editors, and editors go through the book and they see what should be left out and what should be put out. Right? So the Bible is another book, right? And you have to understand that there are parts of it that if it had joined that 66 canon, it would not be cohesive and coherent. And when you're reading a book, it has to be cohesive and coherent. We weren't here to talk about the Bible, though. We're here to talk about AI and AI and whatever. Even the book of Enoch has high technology in it. Well, if you think it has a high technology, Simon, and it can help you to master what is happening in the world, do it, use it. But I've not seen where they're using that. The book of Enoch is helping us to develop our technology. I didn't see that. And perhaps the book of Enoch might also be linked to some of the and that is why we have these things like AI and now, Simon Shaw is saying this is what would happen if we had a low-tech society existing alongside high-tech one. Now, we have a high-tech society, right? And is making our world less safer, right? So this high-tech world is not, and this is what we need to understand. Some of the knowledge that we have access to, right, is more dangerous for us than had we not had access to them. Something to think about. And then we have here to read Apocrypha, it's that simple love. Then we have Martin Luther was a German theologian who sparked the Protestant Reformation. Yeah. He was actually not the first, right? There were those who came, there were some who came before him, but he actually was the one who won the 95 thesis. Like there was some other, what's his name again? Forgot some of them before him. Luther was a fraud. Why was he a fraud? In fact, if he were a fraud, you would not have the freedom that you have now, right? He was the one who actually allowed us to move into what we call the period of the Enlightenment. So if he was a fraud, you wouldn't, whatever freedom you came to and you're enjoying now, you wouldn't have it. In the book of Enoch, they spoke of a society of gods that existed on earth. Right, so let's talk about that. What gods? And you know, yesterday when we were looking at the AI, the Chinese professor was telling us that AI, they're moving into what they're making these machines, and they're moving into what making us feel like we are gods, right? So that is the purpose of the technology, to make us look like we are God. And are we gods? And that is what they do. And when they think that they're gods, then they come and they can be autocratic, because they're going to dictate to you and tell you where to go, how to lead your lives. And that is how these things can be dangerous, right? So one of the things that we need to ask ourselves a question. Would we rather believe someone who created the universe, or believe someone who thinks that they know about the one who created the universe and they don't know how? one that is omniscient, the other that is way limited in knowledge, which would you have to trust? And we're trusting now man and technology, and what technology is doing. Technology is destroying us, right? The technology, whether we like it or not, is convenient. It is the same technology that we think access to this high-tech society is destroying every fabric of humanity. That's another thing. It's destroying every fabric of our humanity, and that's something that we have to. And then we have here, if you're going to trod this road, you can't without bring up Nephilim for demonology to understand demons and their hierarchy, fallen angels, and etc. Now, that's a very dangerous path that some people tread on, thinking that evil angels were actually, having sexual intercourse. In the first place, angels cannot have sexual intercourse with humans. Do you know that? They don't have that sort of capacity. We are the only beings in the universe who can procreate, except God, right? We are the only ones in the universe. Angels can't. All right, so that's the first thing. The Bible was talking about the fact that after the flood, that what happened is that you had the sons of God and you also had the sons of man. Now, the sons of God were just people who were normal, regular people who worship God. And the ones who were called the sons of man were evil people who were protesting against God and his people. So what was happening is that the people who trusted in God, they were uniting, fellowship, and had children with those who didn't. And God forbade them. And what happened now is that they brought upon the world a lot of rebellious people. And that's why God had always had to intervene and destroy the world, because of the level of demonism and evil. But remember now that, as we're suggesting, that human beings, they can interact with demons, as we are seeing now the technology, and they can create mayhem in society. What is happening right now? We have Simon say, yet your Bible says there is only one God. Yeah. So, okay. So what's the point? How many do you think? How many do you think there are? If you think that do you think there are more? Then we have, let me go. The first 3 commandments is to follow this God. All the commandments require that you follow him. Then we have, it seems to me that you're insecure, Simon. I don't know what you're saying. You don't seem to understand what the Bible is, and you're not saying anything. Now, it helps us to understand, Trevor is saying, why the world is so wicked with all these people advancing technology by finding ways to destruction. And we are seeing now is the amalgamation of demonic spirits with human beings. That's what we're seeing now. We're living to see another reiteration of that sort of activity, where we're seeing humans are now closely aligned with the members of the demonic realm, and we are doing things that are going to destroy us, right? We are doing things, we're walking down a path that we are going to be destroyed, because we don't understand the demonic realm. Remember now that our understanding, we are humans, and these beings are more powerful. They operate in a much more higher realm we can ever imagine. Okay? And yet we are now trying to adapt some of the systems that we have, and it's going to destroy the entire planet. Stephen said, you're in a kind of choppy. Yes, people are saying that. Can you hear me still? Are you hearing me? I just have to go until I finish. A commandment, God couldn't teach us about hygiene and what's that? That I don't know what you're saying. But what's Simon show? You think you need to go and read your Bible, because had it not been for the Bible, humans would not know hygiene. But a lot of the hygiene that we are actually practicing, particularly in the Western world, came from the Bible. So go and read Leviticus and read books like Deuteronomy, and you will see what and how we should practice good hygiene. Very important that you do that. Wow, the audio is still bad, and now the video chopping. But I don't see where the video is chopping on my screen. Something is wrong. The Bible was curated for you by corrupt men. If the Bible were curated by corrupt men, it would not be exposing corrupt people, right? If the Bible were encouraged by corrupt men, were written by corrupt men, they would not have fought against it. They would not have prevented you from reading it, because you don't read it, and the society from reading it, because it obviously will tell them expose their evil deeds, and that's what the Bible does. The Bible is a book of light. It was corrupt. I mean, I think that they would have allowed it to remain in school. Why do you think the United States don't want it to be read in school? And they want to tell you that the theory of evolution is the theory that you need to learn, because they understand that it is a powerful book. If I think that something is lightweight, I am not going to disallow people to read it. But how many people do read the Bible and understand what the Bible? One thing to read it, but do you understand it? Right? That's what we need to understand too, you know. Many of you haven't read it for yourselves. You don't understand it, but you understand what people have said about it, and you are repeating it, and that is to your own detriment. Okay, hopefully that we can get through the live before. I'm unable to hear. Can we hear now? Can we hear now? Wow. Is it back? Okay, let me see if I can go back with the other. Oh, wow. Wow. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Are you hearing me? Can you hear me better? Hopefully it's better now. I'm not sure what's going on here. Oh, wow. Yes. Yeah, I'm hearing that. I'm hearing that it's bad. Yeah, I'm hearing that it's bad. I might have to just go through and end it, because it's bad. I understand. Yeah. The audio is bad. Yeah. Yeah. Audio and video. God. All right. So let me do something. Let me reschedule it for tomorrow, and then let me reschedule it for tomorrow, and then we can have the live. Is that okay? Let me reschedule it for tomorrow, because you're not here. Let me reschedule. Maybe not tomorrow, but another day. Let me reschedule for tomorrow. Yeah, let me see if I can read. Why is it not? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me better now? Can you hear? Is it better now? Is it better? Or should I turn off my audio? It's stable now. It's better now. Is it better now? It's stable now. Is it stable? Better? Is it better now? Okay, good. All right. Let's continue if it's better. I can only think you're saying yes. All right. So we have here, somebody's asking, why does your God want to hide knowledge from us? As I'm suggesting to you, not all knowledge is worthy to have, right? We are living in a world now where people want to dabble into everything, and not all knowledge is safe to have. Not all knowledge you are able to deal with. Right? And some knowledge is going to destroy you. And what if we didn't have knowledge of the AI that we say we have now? What is happening with the AI? The AI is going to destroy us. What about knowledge of making nuclear weapons, right? And nuclear arms? Is that destroying us? Yes. So there is knowledge that we have that might not have been good for us to have, because we're not using it to actually praise God. We're using it to praise ourselves. The knowledge that we have, that God has given to man, is for man to worship him, not to worship himself. And that is what we're doing right now, and to worship the things that he has made, that man has created or invented, right? And that is what we're doing right now. We are using the knowledge to worship and to destroy ourselves. It's not evil, right? What man is doing now is evil, but what God did is not evil. Well, if you think the book is a fable, that's your choice to make. In the same way that, Eve, when she ate the forbidden fruit, that was her choice. But you saw the consequences that came with that choice. So we must understand that, yes, we have choice. And God gives us freedom of choice. But the freedom of choice comes with and will come at a cost, at a price. We all have to pay that price. Now, read the book of Enoch and you will find out what Eve was. I don't have to read the book of Enoch to find out what. I have sufficient information from the 666 to know what she was, right? That is what I need to know. I don't need to delve into things that I need not to. Can you hear now? If somebody say we can hear. Good, very good. All right, so let me continue. It's going in and out. Wow. Then we have still a bit choppy though. Yeah. Okay, so we might have to cancel because I don't want to the Roman Catholic Church decided to split the Bible, but if you read the Apocrypha, everything lines back up and helps for great context and understanding. The fact of the matter is, how is it helping you to draw closer to God? If that Apocrypha is helping you to draw closer to God and get a better knowledge of Him, yes, fine. If it is not, I would say to you, stay. If it's helping you to get rid of sin in your life, right, then yeah, more power to you. But it's not an amount of knowledge that we have that is going to save us from sin. And that is the main gist of the Bible. Not for us to be getting lots of information, even though that to Him is necessary, because the Bible says that sometimes too much knowledge can be dangerous. A little too much knowledge can be what? Dangerous, because we don't know how to use it. We're not balanced people, so we sometimes use it for evil. Yeah, and we have, let me go through quickly. How can you believe in ancient aliens and the Bible at the same time, bro? Leave out the word bro, all right? I don't like this bro thing. It sounds like a teenage. This is not a teenage program, right? So leave this bro thing. I find it to be obnoxious. Your cognitive dissonance is in full effect. I don't understand your question. It doesn't make any sense. How can you believe in ancient aliens and the Bible at the same time? How do I believe in ancient aliens? Did I tell you that I believe in ancient aliens? Right? So you're making accusations, Simon, show you're not thinking, you're not using your frontal lobe, right? You're making accusations of things that I did not say. I never told you I believed in ancient aliens. I said that there are people in ancient times, in antiquity, who believed in it and who believed that they saw apparitions, who were aliens or who were what we were calling now UFOs. But I did not say I believe in ancient aliens. You have to listen. And you must use your frontal lobe to reason from cause to effect, which I find many of our people are not able to do, right? So before you make your accusations, think. You don't know me and I don't know you. So you don't know what I know from what I don't know. You are actually placing all of this emphasis on the book of Enoch, and if the book of Enoch is going to make me just like Eve, right? When the devil told her that eating of the forbidden fruit was going to, transform her into a higher being, and it did not. It actually transformed her into an inferior creature. She had her husband. And we can see the chain of sinful actions that came about because of that one disobedience. So if you want to place a lot of attention on the book of Enoch and blame God for not giving you knowledge of that book and that you were so independent, then you do it. More power to you. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm saying to you, are you getting a better understanding of God and the world in which you live? Then I would say more power to you. Based on what I'm seeing here, I don't think so. The Simon Show is saying, nope, your so-called angels mated with humans, you lie. Where's your evidence? Where is your evidence? And where did the Bible say that so-called evil angels mated with humans? Could you present that evidence? Again, lots of assertions, Simon Show. That is not intelligent reasoning. According to the 6th verse of the book of Psalms, chapter 82, we are gods, but this is not taught in churches. Now, do you think that we are gods? what did Psalm 6 verse 82? We have, you said Psalm 6, the 6th verse of Psalm 82. Let's go to that. Let's look at the book of Psalm 82 verse 6 and see what it says. Psalm, because that is, interestingly, that was what the angel, that was what the demon, that Lucifer said to Eve, that she would have become like God, right? And she found that she did not become like God, right? In fact, we are even lower than what Adam and Eve were in. They were perfect. We're now more imperfect than they are, or they were. Arise, so this is, I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. So we have here, the psalmist is saying, O God, standeth of the congregation of the mighty, he judges among the gods, right? So he's saying he judges among the gods, right? And the gods there stand for what? The idols. The idols. How long will he judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? The wicked referring to those people, right? And the ones who have their pagan gods. Defend the poor and the fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy, deliver the poor and needy, rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. And then he says, I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High, but he shall die like men. Did you read the other verse, Marie? But ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. So what he's suggesting here is that they're saying that they're gods, but he says, but ye shall die. So he's actually saying they're not, right? They're saying that they're gods. So David is saying to them, oh, that's what you say? Okay, well, so you're saying that you're gods. Well, you're going to die. You're going to die, because what they had was this sense of superiority that we're seeing coming from people like Simon Show, that they know more than God and know more than the word of God. So here David is saying that you say you're God, you say you understand, you have all of this knowledge, but you are going to die. And this is what is happening to our society now, where the scientists and the people who are, inventing these technologies, they believe that they are gods. They believe that they're gods, and God is telling them likewise that you are going to die. And lots of what they're actually inventing is going to kill us spiritually, physically, economically, and in all spheres of our lives. So that is what that they were talking about. I don't want to hear this word bro, and I will not be highlighting your thing. The last time I'm going to hear that word from you, that you're not my brother, and I don't use that word, all right? That is for people like you who use it. I don't use it on my platform. Please, let's be respectful, okay? I don't use that word at all. Then we have Psalms, and we have, that's what we just read. That's what we just read, Marie, where David is actually saying to them that ye say that ye are gods. But he said in verse 7, but he shall die. Then we have, that's in your Bible, the angels mated with humans, but there is nothing that says that. The Bible said the sons of God meet the sons of man, right? And before, if you read Genesis 4, you will see that God referred to the sons of men as people who were actually the sons of Cain, who actually rebelled against God. And the sons of God referred to the sons, that people who actually were obedient to God, Seth and his descendants. Remember now that Cain rebelled against God, right? So his now was a symbol of a seed of children. He produced seed upon the earth in which these humans rebelled against God because they were coming from his seed. He had not repented of his sin of killing Abel. And after Abel was killed, then we had Seth. And Seth, now his descendants were actually likened to the Son of God. It had nothing to do with evil spirits mating, because I'm telling you that the angels cannot procreate. That is not one of their characteristics. And that's a basic knowledge that if you were reading the Bible, you'd understand that no angel can procreate. Now, there are there are people who suggest that the demons sometimes do have, sexual intercourse with humans, but they come in human form and it cannot produce a seed. They can have, human intercourse with humans. That's angels, the demonic first, but they have to transform themselves into humans, and that whatever they do will not procreate, will not produce another child. Only humans can do that. Okay, that's what you have to understand. But these are basic information we don't understand because it's evident that we don't read the Bible. Okay, you will not have understood because that is totally, and that is of the cult world too. When people talk about the Philium and all of these things, that the angels interacting and having intercourse with you, is coming from cult. Because what the occult wants us to do is to have this close interaction with demons, right? And we know that it is not going to be good, not going to end up good. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that was the origin of the Nephilims. And what we're saying, well, whatever they were not human beings who came from evil angels. Angels cannot procreate with human beings and have children. That never happened and will never happen because God never made them that way. Right? And if you understand, that was one of the reasons why the devil is upset with us too, as human beings, because we are the only one that God has given that ability to procreate and to have children. The angels were called into existence. They were not created as we were created. They were actually called into existence. They cannot, produce or procreate. They cannot, right? And if they could, don't you think that the devil would have more angels? But they can't. That's not what they were made to do. Yeah, so we have, he hasn't read the Bible. Well, you obviously haven't read it because you're just making accusations without any sort of backing evidence from the Bible. Stop simping for the Bible. Okay. Bye-bye. You're not saying anything. So let's move on to people who have something to discuss. There's some confusion with books of Enoch. I think the Ethiopian Orthodox Church accepts only the first book of Enoch, but Rastafarians accept all three books of Enoch. Well, and obviously they are of different faiths in terms of people who, just like the Roman Catholic Church, and they have their accepting of certain parts of the Bible, other parts they don't accept. But, people who are Protestant Christians understand that the 66th book of the canon are the ones that God wants us to have, that God has prepared for us, and that's what we use. Those who read other books, and fine, that is up to them, right? And if it empowers them and give them greater understanding, and they're able to have a sinful and develop a better relationship with God, then fine, right? Based on what I know, I think that these books do have some dark, things about them, messages, and that's why people who are a part of the cult, they tend to use these books because that is perhaps what they think gives them the hidden knowledge that they might not have gotten, that they think they want from the other 66 books. So we have that. Let's move on to any other comment? Any other comment? Okay, let's move on now to, we have the Pentagon is saying here, warns of UFO invasion. So the Pentagon warns of UFO invasion. The Pentagon is warning that aliens could be visiting our solar system and releasing smaller probes. These probes, says researcher Sean Kirkpatrick, are much like the missions that NASA launches into space, meaning a larger craft that launches smaller exploratory crafts. The report says that this may explain some of the recently observed crafts in the sky. This report comes from Congress-authorized NASA to find out some answers through the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, that's the AARO. The report was also authored by Abraham Loeb and Harvard's Astronomy Department. So they are telling us that this is real, right? That these aliens, these UFOs are real, and it's coming from Harvard University, right? So it is from the highest seat, as they would say, of academia. But are these things really real? Now, there is an article I read here from the Catholic in America, Aliens, AI, and the End of Truth, The Great Deception Uncovered. So they're telling us that aliens, AI, and the end of truth, as we know it, is our obsession with aliens and AI preparing us for a spiritual deception? I repeat that. Is our obsession with aliens and AI preparing us for a spiritual deception? And it says here that in this electrifying episode of Catholic in America, Jason Adkins interviews philosopher, theologian, and author Daniel O'Connor, who argues that belief in extraterrestrials and superintelligent AI may be part of a growing cultural movement away from Christ and toward idolatry and deception. Now, when we talk about idolatry, what do we mean by idolatry? Many people who think that they know and use knowledge as a way of saying that, yeah, I am superior. Remember now, during the French Revolution, that is what they actually glorified, the goddess of reason, which was the goddess of knowledge. And that is what they said. We don't want God in our lives, in our conversations anymore. That was what took place during the French Revolution. Now, if you read the pages of history, you will understand that immediately after they said that, that blood flowed like rivers of water on the streets of France. And the same guys who said that they never wanted anything to do with the Bible anymore, they had to call back for the Bible and say, we want back the Bible in Parliament, right? We need to have the Bible. Because what happened? Because they thought that they could live by themselves, their knowledge, right, would suffice, and they would be able to be superior beings and having knowledge and live how they want to live without the guidance of the Word of God. And look at what happened to France during that revolution. And, and there was a quote that came from, the third president of the United States. That was Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was the then Secretary of State in France. And some of the things that he said he saw in France, you would have thought that you were in a wild desert, including cannibalism. All right, including cannibalism. Because people, the restraint of God was removed from that nation, right? And what happened afterwards was gross. So we don't understand that even though we take the Bible for granted and we think that, oh, these are simpletons and they don't know what they're saying, that when its pages are removed from government, and we're not saying here that the Bible should direct politicians, but when the people become so irreligious and become so pagan in orientation, where they're thinking that they know when they don't know, because half of what you think you know and you're gleaning from other sources really is not knowledge that is helping to empower you. Look at how much knowledge we have access to right now, right? And how much do we really know? That is the irony of it, We have access to all of this knowledge on the internet, and many of us are still lacking in knowledge, because it's not how much you know, is what you know and what you are using that information to do to empower you, right? We can see now that modern science has gotten a lot of information, but look at how the state of our health in the Western world. Go to the United States, right? Lots of journals. They have lots of medical journals, wonderful journals that they have discovered great things about nutrition and science and all of that stuff. And at the end of the day, US citizens are far more unhealthy than they were years ago when they never had as much knowledge, so-called, right? So we must be very careful in terms of, and I'm not saying you shouldn't read, but be careful also of what you read and you expose your minds to. Because some of the things that we expose our minds to, remember when we're going to school, watch your eyes, what you see, and your ears, what you hear, and what you touch. Because some of the things that we touch and we see, our senses often fool us. They deceive us, and then we're destroyed. Okay? So we have to be careful. You know, there are people, I remember years ago, I was at Howard University, and there was a lady, African-American, and she taught me Portuguese. And, you know, she had a student afterwards, and she kept on saying to him, when you go to Brazil, be careful of going into that candomblé, where they have that martial arts thing in Brazil. Be careful. It's not for the weak, the faint of heart. She says, it's not your culture. And it looks good, looks like a black culture, and you want to be a part of that sort of martial arts. And when he went there, he disobeyed what she said. And she had lived in Brazil for many years, so she knew what she was talking about. And he went there and he participated, and his mind, he came back to Howard University destroyed. Because again, it's just that we are curious as human beings. We want to know. And we think that the more we know, and that is true, we are empowered. But we also have to be careful, on the other hand, about what we are dabbling ourselves into, because that can lead to total destruction. Okay? So this is what he's saying, that this AI system and the UFO thing is going to make us what? Is going to deceive us. Why? Because we are going into a realm that we don't understand. We are on territory, dangerous territory that we don't even understand. Drawing on theology, church history, science, and pop culture, O'Connor proposes that the so-called first and last deception mirrors the serpent's lie in the Garden of Eden, that humans can become like gods. Humans can become like gods through a non-human intelligence. Whether you're a skeptic, a science fiction fan, or someone curious about how Catholics should think about aliens and AI, this conversation offers a clear, thought-provoking, and spiritually grounded perspective. And I say yes. And I'm not Catholic. I'm anti-Catholic. But I must agree with what they have said here, that many of us are going to be deceived because it looks good. It looks quite rational. It looks scientific. It looks powerful. But it's going to destroy you. It is going to destroy you, right? It is going to destroy you. You know, it's often very interesting when we look at the Black Power movement that came out of the United States, right? And many of us, you know, as the Black Power movement went to the Caribbean, and it gave us a sense of, yeah, we're connecting with our Black culture, we're connected with Africa and all of that stuff. Do you know that that Black culture also had a negative effect on the populace and the Caribbean culture, particularly in Jamaica? Because as people thought that they were Blacks and they started having their, you know, what they call it, the dreadlocks and all of that stuff, they moved away from education and mainstream culture, and then became now this sort of antisocial, hanging on the streets, not doing anything productive, because they thought that they were actually, you know, standing up to society and to what mainstream culture requires of them. At the same time, they were there as Rastafarians, and they were learning a lot of things about Africa. Don't get me wrong. Some of it is good. You can get some nice things, some wonderful knowledge, and all of the stories, and knowledgeable, intelligent people. But at the same time, a lot of them were destroyed. Many of our men, not women, many of our men were destroyed during that movement that we think wonderful. But guess what? It also had its cons. Right? So it's not all knowledge that is going to be what empowering in all its. And that is why God selected the 66 books of the Bible. Because he realized those 66 books are the books that are going to empower us and not delving into things that we don't know. Don't you think God is the God who created the forbidden fruit? Talk about the book of Enoch. And you say, wow, that should be a part of the canon. Do you know that it is God who created the fruit? Yes. but he actually used it as a test. Right? And they disobeyed, and this is what happened in the world. Right? Because they don't want to listen, because they don't want to obey. We want when bad things happen to us. So be careful with what you think you know. We have here somebody saying, are you there? Can you still? Wow. It's just terrible what is happening. Let me see if I can. I might have to turn off my audio, my camera. Let me turn off my camera and see if it works better, because not hearing. Let me see if I turn off this camera. How do I turn off the camera? Media suggestions, misguided education. Media suggestions, misguided education. Well, it's much more than that. It's a lot of things that misguided it. Why is this not coming up on the screen? Over summer, yeah, I doubt it. Yeah, so we have true. AI is being used for further control. Dependence on it will further erode sight and weaken the minds of many. What will solidify its godhood in full is when they claim it's sentient. Yeah, sentient. Yeah, that is true. That is true. And that is what we need to know. But what is happening to our world now is a world in which people think that they know, and they really don't know, right? Eve thought, as I was saying, Eve thought that she knew, and then she really realized that she did not know, that she did not become gods. Be careful with anything that tells you that you are a god. The devil himself wanted to be God, and look at what happened to him, right? And we also are declaring that we are gods, and we're not gods. We're creatures. We are creation, right? We're not creators, creatures. Okay, there is something I wanted. Yeah, let me see what's on the screen here. Then we have Archon energy absorbers, yes. And then let's look at something here too. I wanted to show you. Let me look at this. Second Timothy 3 verses 1 to 5. So let's look at Second Timothy 3 verse 1 to 5, because this is something instructive for us this afternoon as we're discussing this live show, and many of you have now pointed it in the direction of the Bible. So let me just get that here. And let me read I like the King James Version. Many of you might like other versions, but I prefer the King James Version. Now, it says that no time shall be lovers of their selves, covetous, boasters, proud, mindful of affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, meaning that they think they know, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. Now, there's also another scripture that suggests that in the last days, men are going to be learning and never be able to come to a knowledge of the truth. Ever learning and never, ever be able to come to a knowledge of the truth. Now, if you're studying and all of this knowledge and we can't come to a knowledge of the truth, something is wrong. And this is the society we're living in. And abundance of information at the tip of our fingers, yet still many of us are deprived of the truth. How could that be? How could that be? What it's suggesting to us is that all of this knowledge is worth nothing if it's not properly understood, right? And if we don't have wisdom. Because wisdom without knowledge is foolishness. And that's what we have to understand. Wisdom without knowledge is foolishness. So many of what we're seeing now in the technology, great knowledge, great inventions, and we can't, deny them of that. Great inventions. But at the same time, these inventions are designed to kill us, to destroy human civilization, right? Because they think that they're gods. They think that they are gods, the tech people in California and around the world. And if you work with them, and people who have worked with them say that they do believe that they're gods. And they were the ones also responsible for the vaccines. A lot of them were also responsible for making the vaccines during the pandemic. And we know what happened because, again, they think they are God. And they would not want us to know who is God or not. By the way, and I want to say this as we're going along. If you do not, and I don't care if you're Rastafarian, if you are Jehovah's Witness, or if you are whatever your faith is, all right? Or Hindu, whatever your faith is. Do you know that during the pandemic and history in general, when you have a major, a major tyrannical government, that it's usually people who are religious and people of faith that stand up to government and often protect societies against tyranny? Science is not going to do it, by the way. No matter how much knowledge you have gleaned over the years, that's not going to allow you to stand up. Because even though a person who is knowledgeable or who is religious might not be knowledgeable, but what he or she knows to do is to stand up for his or her convictions, right? And that is what many people weren't able to do during the pandemic. They were not able because they had no convictions. They had no convictions. But the people, even some of them who never had an education, but they were religious, they had faith, they stood up, even though they never understood everything. They humbled themselves and said, something is not right here. My spirit, my conscience tells me something is not right, and I'm going to follow my conscience. Many of you thought you knew the science, right? And you're educated, and you're working in the medical field, so you think that you knew. And what happened? You were deceived. You were deceived. And that is what faith stands above knowledge. Because faith includes what? Conviction. You have to be convicted of something, even when you can't see it. Right? Even when you can't see the thing, you know that it is wrong or it is true. The conscience what? The conscience tells you. The voice of God or whatever your faith is speaks to you. Okay? So what we see now, when you see AI and the UFOs and all of the things that they're going to bedazzle our eyes with, if you don't have faith in whatever you think you have, whatever, I'm not saying what faith you need to have. That's not for me to tell you on this program. All right? But I'm telling you the truth. That if you don't have faith, you're going to be deceived. Because what else? What else are you going to use to explain the mysterious things that you are going to see? Right? And the AI is mysterious. The UFOs, aliens, all of these things are mysterious. Don't you believe that science has all the explanations for these things? They don't. They're lying to you. They're lying to you, but you think that they are telling you the truth. Oh, it's scientific. Because the journal told you that? Because Harvard University said that? Harvard University said that the vaccines were also effective. Right? Harvard University journal said that the vaccines were safe and effective. Were they? Now, then we have here AI still being programmed by an algorithm and is restricted by programmers, but people will forget that and start believing anything it gives to them if they don't know how to engineer it to find truth. Right. And eventually, Trevor, because we have limitations too, and they know that, and because they are working in a higher spiritual realm with these AI and UFOs, we can be deceived too, because even though we have all this knowledge, they have the game higher than we are, because I'm telling you that these spirits that they're working with are in higher realm than our intelligence, right? And that is why I think AI is smarter than we are for the most part, because they're not working with human capacity, right? It is the occult, something mystical, mysterious beings that you and I we have never beheld with our eyes, with our naked eyes. So some of the things that we're going to see on AI are things, even though we might have a lot of knowledge of how it performs, it will still bedazzle our eyes and we might be deceived too. We don't only have to rely on whomever you want to rely on, but you can't rely on your naked eyes. You can't rely on the evidence, as they're telling you, because the evidence is going to fool you, right? Because the evidence sometimes can be very convincing, wow, this is true, because you're seeing it. And who are you to tell me that I'm not seeing this thing, right? But I'm telling you, what you're seeing might not be what you're seeing. That is why you have to have faith. Faith is not something blind, Faith is believing that there are things beyond your ken, beyond your humanity, that you have to say, these things I don't understand. Yeah, lots of things in life we don't understand, right? And people they just have to move on. Like, I don't understand it, right? Simon Show is saying, let me see if Simon is saying something. We're reading Bible verses now. I thought this was a show about aliens. How does everything always somehow end up back with the Bible? Because the Bible is the foundation of life and light. And what we're saying here, we are up against evil. And the Bible is a symbol of righteousness. So yes, AI, Slimy Show, is about our wrestling. As the Bible says, we're not wrestling against what? Humans, but we're wrestling against what? Spirituality and powers. And beings in high places, right? So what we're seeing now, we're seeing the government, Slimy Show. But the government is not what is really effectuating these things. We have beings that are actually behind the government, prodding the government, pushing the government to do something that is going to affect us. But they do know. And let me repeat that to you, that this is a spiritual dimension. This is nothing that is real and human. AI is not human. I repeat that. AI, UFO, and aliens are not humans. Right? So there's nothing that we can use now to explain what these things are, but tapping into the spiritual realm. Okay? We do know we have good spirits and we have what? Evil spirits. We know that. Okay? Because there are lots of things that happen to us. Good things happen to us and bad things happen to us. And we're saying, where do the good things come from and where do the bad things come from? Right? And this is what we're having a sort of conversation. But you don't have to believe that, you can give me your impression, Slimy Show. It's a form of sickness. What is a form of sickness? Then we have, okay, I'm out, nothing to learn from here. I don't think you have anything to offer, Slimy Show, are you? Now, then we have here I like the King James version also. Yes. But some people prefer the modern versions, but I prefer it. I just like the thou and the thee. I guess because I like Shakespeare's language and so forth, and it's still closer to that Shakespearean language. I tend to prefer the thou and the thee, but many people don't like it either. So so that is what we have to understand, ladies and gentlemen. And one of the things is that we are looking for something that we can explain. With AI, something that is within our ken, right? But we're saying that AI is not something that is within our human existence and knowledge, that it is much more than our eyes are beholding. And that is what the program here is all about. Yeah, I didn't plan to move into a lot about the Bible, but the Bible people came up with it, and including the Simon Show, and I think it was worth having that discussion on that. Now, let's ask a few questions before we go so we can get a little more thing. Now, is the biggest issue UFOs themselves or who controls the information? Let us ask a question. Is the biggest issue UFOs themselves or who controls the information? Is it the UFO that is the problem or who controls it? What would we say? Is the biggest issue UFOs themselves or who controls the information? Let's move on to another question. Does technological power create a new class of decision makers? Does technological power create a new class of decision makers? What do you think about that? Do you think this technological invention is creating a new form of decision makers? Because as we're here, the future is not only about what is out there, it's about what we are becoming. And I want you to understand that. I really want us to understand that. Please write this down. The future is not only about what is out there. So we're talking about aliens and UFOs and AI. It is about what we are becoming. And we are being transformed into what? A transhuman nature. They want us to become not human beings and to become robots, to become AI, to become beings that we are not, right? And this is what and people are talking about the fact that when you look back, I'm seeing on videos, right, of the 1980s, 1990s, early 2000s, and they're showing us clippings of people and they used to interact. They would sit on a lawn and talk and have picnic and they eat and they laugh and have fun. Right now, we are so much into our cell phones and our technological gadgets that we're no longer communicating as human beings. We're no longer behaving as human beings. And that is what we're here to explore. So it's what we are becoming. It's what we are becoming and not what is out there. And Michael Smith is saying, what do UFOs, AI have to do with the second coming of Christ? 5 words that appear nowhere in the entire Bible. Facts. Good. Well, the Bible gives us what? Warnings, signs, right? It does not give us words like AI and whatever, right? But what we do know is that the coming of Christ is going to be a very what do you call it now? The most spectacular event that human eyes have ever beheld. Now, before the coming of Christ, we are going to have, the devil is going to mimic, is going to personate the second coming of Christ. So he's going to come in this world. He's going to come to this world, our earth, and he's going to have his angels and pretend as if he is Christ. The Bible did say that many are going to be deceived and believe because it's going to be so bedazzling, so radiant that they are going to believe that this is Christ. Okay, so when we say that, when you're asking the question to answer your question, we can say that AI can be used by the devil to make people think that, yes, God is here, right? Because he can, the entire world is interconnected, right? We're all doing the same thing, right? So it means, therefore, that the devil can use AI, can masquerade himself into looking exactly like God, like Christ, and people are going to be deceived. Yeah, so from that perspective. But the Bible is not using UFOs and AI and all. The Bible talks about spirits. We talk about evil spirits and good spirits, righteous spirits, good angels and bad angels, right? But not spirits. And by the way, as we're suggesting here, the AI is not physical, right? As we're saying, it's more in a spiritual realm, that you and I in the occult. It's tied up with the occult. And very soon we're going to find ourselves seeing things that we can't explain. We can't explain. What if AI begins to talk to you in your you've turned off your computer. We're hearing that, even when you turn off your computer, that they still can see you. They can surveil you. Have you heard that? That they have it in system that even though you shut off your phone, that you can still be watched. You can still be surveilled, right? So if that can happen, what if one day we turn off our computers or your cell phones, whatever you have, and so ChatGPT and AI would have been turned off, well, so you think, and then in the night you hear something talking to you, right? And these things are going to happen, as time goes by. These things are going to happen where you're going to hear voices in your room, wherever you are, and nobody's there. You're going to see things flying around, right? And nothing is there. And what are you going to say? Science? Or it's some science? And what if these things begin to get violent and vicious? Who are you going to depend on? Are we asking ourselves these questions? And there are people who are seeing these things, and that's what they're saying. They're seeing these flying saucers, and they're hearing sounds that of strange things, beings around them, and they can't really explain. They're not stupid, right? It's just that they are involved. What they're seeing is like almost that they're being transitioned into a spiritual realm that is dangerous, right? And this is where we're going. This is what AI is taking us to. And that's what I'm saying to you, that if angels move at the speed of light, which they do, they also think at the speed of light, that they are way superior in knowledge than we are. Okay? So when we plug something into AI, as much as we say that, yes, it does plagiarize and it does use other things it had stored in it, but the rapidity in which it gives us, it spits out the information, it's almost like it's in that realm. It's now beyond human ken and human ways of behavior. This is not how typical humans behave. And we don't really spit out knowledge as fast as an angel can. And remember now that the devil and his angels, even though they're fallen, but they still have what? They still have powers. God never removed the powers from them. So even though they're using those powers for evil, but they do have powers, and their knowledge force, exceeds our knowledge. And that's why we have to tread safely on what we think we're reading, what we're exposing our minds to, because these beings are there, and they take advantage when they see that you are treading on a wrong path. They do that. That's their purpose: to kill, to steal, and to destroy. So that's what AI is here to do: to kill, to steal, to surveil, and to destroy us, to destroy our humanity. Our world as we know it is now being plunged into another realm. Isn't that interesting? Yes. Any other question? Do we have any other question? You want any other question? Interesting sort of conversation that you're having. And I'm happy that many of you started off and let us know that this has nothing to do with only science, right? But it has a lot to do with the spiritual realm, and it has to do with, one of the things, if you understand that, that the devil himself, his main goal is to destroy the world, and to destroy everything in it. Right? That is his major. It is God's restraining order that keeps us safe and alive every day from these beings that would have torn us to pieces had God allowed him to do so. Right? So when we think this AI is something you play with, if you understand the demonic realm and the powers of these beings, then we understand that this is not something we play with. And even though you and I use it, but we must use it with precaution. We must use these things with precaution. Already they're telling us, and secular, psychologists are telling us that the more you use AI, is the more that your brain is being weakened, because you're allowing AI to think for you. So your frontal lobe, so when you see something that is going to deceive you, you're going to be easily deceived because your frontal lobe, you can't think. You can't think. You can't think. And somebody was asking, so how are you talking about the Bible when it's AI? Because everything leads back to good and evil. And right now, we can say of a surety that our world is evil. We can say with a surety that our world is evil. And I don't care what religion you want to be a part of, but it is evil. And morality, there's no morality anymore. Moral standards are lacking. And that is why people are now going to be deceived and they don't care, and AI will take over because guess what? AI does not talk about morality, right? AI has nothing to do with morality. It just has to do with deceiving you, right? So we have here, most dangerous things are being normalized, right, Trevor? So people won't be able to realize the danger or use caution. Absolutely. It's normal. Go on ChatGPT and you think and you laugh with it and you're having fun with it. At the same time, it's damaging your brain, right? And it's also removing, by the way, I when you use AI, ChatGPT more specifically, it wants to control your thinking and it wants to tell you what to think and not to think. And a lot of times I have to push back and say, don't tell me what to think. I'm just asking you a question, but don't try to tell me what to think. I push back. I hope you're pushing back too, because what they're essentially doing, they're trying to make AI seem now the leader of knowledge. It's more superior to human beings, and it knows that. The AI knows that, and it's pretending so. So if you're not careful, you must push back all the time and say, don't you ever tell me how to think. And don't tell me what you can verify. I will verify it for myself. Oh, there's no evidence to verify, even when you know that there is, but AI will tell you that there isn't, right? So you have to be able now to use your minds, because what they're trying to do is to weaken our brains so that eventually we'll accept everything that is deceptive, political, economic, spiritual, right? And what a time now when the region, and that's why I had the discussion on, was it Saturday evening, about the fact that a time when we need to have some faith, we've given up on our faiths. The world has allowed us to give up on our faith when this system of AI and UFOs and all of the agendas that they're coming with are more spiritual than physical. But you call it metaphysical. Call it whatever you want to. Metaphysical, it's a cult. It's a part of the occult. It's a part of the occult. And the occult is spiritual. And there are lots of videos on YouTube, and people are not religious, who are talking about how the music world, the sports world, all of these are merged with the occult, right? They're telling you these things. You're talking about the Bible. You don't have to even use the Bible to talk about these things. Okay? So we have the thing, Trevor, it's been happening about 2 decades. A mental illness has been normalized. And why do you think the world is now filled with mental illness? Why? And it's going to increase, as you're saying, Pedro, as time goes by. Why is it now that more people than we expect, right now in the Caribbean, all over the world, in the United States particularly, people are just mentally ill, autistic? All these sorts of mental problems are coming up, and people can't really explain what is really happening, right? What is really happening with these forms of mental illness or illnesses? Why? It's just because we can explain it. And the more knowledge we have, is the more we have more diseases surfacing. And these diseases are inexplicable. We can't explain them. Yet we have knowledge, don't we? Don't we? But what is the knowledge helping us to do? Right? What is knowledge helping us to do? That is what we have to ask. Now, any other response? Any other? Let me ask you another question before we go, so we can get some more of your participation here in this discussion. I think I'm talking too much. Let me go here. The central issue may not be only the disclosure of unknown objects, but disclosure of how technology is changing human freedom. And that is what we are here to say. How is this technology of the AI, the UFO, and the aliens, how is that going to change our freedom? Do you think that we are going to have the freedoms that we are accustomed to in the region? Or do you think that the AI and UFOs and all of these things that we're seeing now becoming a part of our society, whether you like it or not, whether you believe in it or not, it's a part of our societies and the realities. How do you think that these things are going to change the freedoms that we hold so dearly? And another question I could ask you, do you believe governments know more about UFOs than they tell the public? Do you think the governments really know more about UFOs than they tell the public? I want to hear from you. Oh yeah, let me see what you have here. So Pedro is saying here, let me go back here. It's been engineered through social sciences, my opinion. Yes, and cultural, yes, and and religion too, right? Let's not say through religion too, because there are deceptive religion. So let's talk about, people talk about the fact that I'm not here to say that religion can be deceptive and is deceptive, right? So we can have deceptive science, we have deceptive religion, we have deceptive social sciences, as Pedro Dramont is saying, cultural, sciences, whatever. Okay, agreed, yes. And all the media and technology, including religion, AI, are guiding people along invisible barriers and canceling or barring you openly if you don't, rewarding mental illness and encourage it for $1. Correct. Another thing is and let's talk about this right now. How many of us wake up in the mornings and we talk to our brothers or sisters, your wife, whatever? Are we finding ourselves on social media more than communicating with individuals, with humans? Are we having human dialogue, right? Because that's also another problem, that in previous times we had difficulties, right? Let's be honest now. We were traumatized, we had difficulties, right? We had pain and suffering in former times, but what we had were people who would be by our sides, and we could go over to the neighbor's house and we could talk, right? And talk with them, and it was therapeutic. Nowadays, people don't want to hear your problems. They don't want to listen to you. They just don't care, right? All they want to be is on social media, right? And that is what also is giving them the mental illness, because it's not real. What you see on social media is not real. Is it real, right? People are giving you about their houses and what they're doing, and they're at the beach, and you're thinking, oh, they're living such wonderful lives, and I'm not living that life. You think that your life is not worthy, it's not fulfilling, all of that stuff. And all of these things are adding to people's mental illness. You're right. Then we have, I believe the governments know more about UFOs, Marie saying, than they are divulging to the public. I agree with you 100%. Now, why the follow-up question, Marie and others, would be, why would they want to not disclose it to us? Why would the government, how does it benefit the government not to disclose the information about UFOs? Is it because they don't want to frighten us, because it's scary and people don't want to know that they're seeing flying saucers running around them, right? Because that's scary, right? When you see something outside, you say, what the dickens is that? Then we have President Martin saying religion or faith is included in cultural changes. Correct. Absolutely. Yeah, religion is a part of culture. You're right. You're right about that. Can't argue with that. And then we have Trevor saying Operation Blue Beam is a CIA. And remember, I was just saying that, Trevor, there is an operation. Can you research that for me, somebody? Operation Stargate. I did not get a chance to look up that today. Operation Stargate. because that was what the professor was telling us about yesterday on one of the clippings. I told you that the CIA has this operation Stargate, that of the UFOs and the aliens and the AI, and that has been going on from 1960s, right? So this has been an operation so Operation Bluebeam, as Trevor is saying, is a CIA project planning to stage fake high-tech supernatural events to establish a totalitarian world government, right? And by the way, people who say, why are you talking about religion? The one world government is not going to be an economic one government, It's not going to be a political one world government. It can't be a one world government without religion. Because religion, whether it's false religion, don't get me wrong, it's going to be a false religion, but it's going to be a religion that is going to glue people. Why? Because people fearful. And you have to use the occult and the metaphysical and the flying saucers and things to scare people, to scare the life out of people, and then they begin to worship. Please accept me, right? That's what they're going to do. So whether you like it or not, hate or like religion is going to be used to, in a very phony way, to unite the world in this one world government. It's not going to be a political one world government, right? Politics is too divisive, and politics does not talk about morals, right? But when people hear about morals and things like that, they want to say, oh yeah, we need more morals. And then they're going to glue you in and say, we are the ones to give you a better society because we know the answers, and then you're going to worship. Now, then we have Trevor saying, if you search it now, the AI will probably call it a conspiracy theory. They will say there's no evidence. That's what they always say, Trevor. Just don't research it now for me. I'm going to say there's no evidence. There's no evidence to suggest that these things are occurring. So AI will tell you that. Pedro Jamati is saying, it starts by talking about mental health and not wanting to offend. Yeah, but what we're saying here is what is causing it, because what is happening in Pedro is that they're giving us a lot of, what do you call it now, like in the States, in the United States, people talk about it. They're more open about, not Black people per se, but other ethnic groups in the United States, they talk about their mental health. But the fact is that it's always superficial in the sense that it's all about drugs. Oh, so you have this illness, you have that illness, and what's the drug to cure it? But what we want to know, what are the root causes of it? That's what we need to know. And we're saying one of the root causes is the fact that we don't have human-to-human communication anymore. We no longer sit down as a family. How many of you having your children, you do have chats around every Sunday or every other day? You have your family talk around the table where you sat and you ate your dinner with your children and you talk to them and you talk about your life growing up as a child. We don't have these things anymore. We give them the gadgets and they're always watching TV and they're always on social media, and then they grow up with mental illness. Because the basic things that we think are just not necessary is for ancient societies are the very same things that are causing serious health crisis in our world today. Right? Because we think that we're so developed. We think that we're so high-tech. And the same high-tech sort of, development is destroying us. And which leads me to ask the question, do you know, by the way, and somebody mentioned it yesterday when I was watching another video, that we only use 10%, I think it's only less than a third of our human brain we use. Do you know that? We only use human beings. So even some of these so-called, the smart guys, these brilliant people, right? These geniuses, that's the word I was looking for, these geniuses. I am not one of them, but they only use less than a third of the human brain. Now, if they're just using less than a third and they can make nuclear weapons and they could have, invented some of the greatest technologies that we're seeing right now, what if we're using the full capacity of the human brain? And that is what we're saying, that God is good, that some knowledge we shouldn't have. Because human beings are not what? We don't have self-control for the most part. And whenever we think we have lots of knowledge, whenever you see a genius, what does he or she behave as if they're gods and I am God, right? And that's how we are. So we have to, and that is what we have to be careful of. Lots, too much knowledge can be dangerous. A little too much knowledge, right? A little knowledge, and not a lot of too much, but it's a little knowledge. The wise man said, a little knowledge can be a dangerous thing. Look around for yourself. The ball in FIFA is said to pick up a hair in its sensor technology. And we also saw it bounce, but the referee wanted us to believe that the ball didn't believe our lies, not your eyes. You're correct. You're correct. And many people have already shown that sports is, sports is what it is. It is a religion. And when you look at the fans and how they behave, like I was watching also another one where people say, don't cry because your team lost. I'm like, cry for what? I mean, it has nothing to do with anything. Then we have Predator Marty saying it will be multicultural, but united on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. By the way, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are coming out of a religion. You're going to be surprised what religion too that is actually the UN is governed by, right? Because the United Nations has its preferred religion. It's a new age religion. The United Nations is more religious than political. Go and do your research. The United Nations, all of these sustainable development or sustainable development goals, and also climate change, we have argued about that before. Climate change, all of these things are rooted in a new age religion, right? It's rooted. And that's why we have to be anchored in truth, because when the whole world is saying holy and they're worshiping and their arms in the air, their hands and their arms, what are you going to do? Are you going to be deceived, or are you going to know that this is a false religion? It's false worship. Now, lack of belief in oneself and critical thinking. Now, can we believe in ourselves? Can man believe in themselves? And that's another question we have to ask. Is it true that we can believe in ourselves? Do we even know ourselves? There are people who say that they know themselves, right? And then if somebody should do harm to your family and you unalive somebody, wow, Andrew would never have done that. Pedro would never have unalived somebody. But somebody pushed you to the limit and you did it. And you never thought you would have been able to do it. So we don't even know ourselves. Do you know that? We know ourselves to a certain extent. But when under pressure, under severe stress, some of us don't even know how we would behave. Right? So we don't know ourselves, really. And that is why we need somebody, some other higher being who knows us more than we do know ourselves. All right? Well, that is what you think you do. You think you do. I've heard many people say that, Pedro, that they know themselves. And, I found out that they never really knew themselves as they think they do. At 16 years old, a psychologist told me that everyone is mad. Thoughts is to control them. Well, I think all of us have some taint of mental illness. I do think so, right? But I think it's to what intensity, to what extent. So definitely some of us, we control it, right? Because vices, human vices, whatever we do that we know is wrong, is a form of mental illness, isn't it? Right? When you drink a lot, it's a form of mental illness because it's going to affect your kidneys, your liver, other things. So any human vice, when you smoke, whatever you overeat, anything that we do that is a vice is a form of mental illness. It is. Then we have Trevor saying, yes, Operation Stargate is one being used to open dimensions such as the CERN, right, using the particle collider. Yeah. So they know, as Marie says, the governments do know what they are doing. Now, do you think some UFO sightings are secret military technology rather than something extraterrestrial? Do you think some UFO sightings are secret military technology rather than something extraterrestrial? What do you think? I think it's both. I think that they have the technologies to make things appear as as if they're real and it's not real. But I do think sometimes they merge technology with that of the spirit realm. And that is where the, what you call it now, the deception is. We don't know which one is what sometimes. And even with ChatGPT, I am not 100% clear too. But I do know that ChatGPT and AI is not normal, and it's just not technology. There's a higher dimension. There's certainly a higher dimension when you talk about AI. But do I know? Can I put my fingers on it? No. No. And that is what we're saying, ladies and gentlemen. You will never know everything. No matter how much you explore everything, you just will not know everything, because human beings are limited. We're limited to what we know and what we understand. We can only learn as much as we can. By the way, people are even suggesting to me the 66 books of the Bible. We have 66 books. How many people have read? How many of the 66 books people have read? What if we had like 100 books of the Bible? If we can barely read 66 books, right? Which how many of you have read all of them 66 books right throughout, thoroughly, parsing every word? How many of us have done that? Yet we want more, and we haven't mastered what we have, and we haven't learned enough from the 66 books that we have. Let's talk about that too, right? Because sometimes we want more things, right? When we have the thing that we need right at our disposal, but we say we want more. Now, then we have Pedro Damati saying, for righteousness' sake will do. Yes, there are many gods, right? There are many gods in terms of there are many people who pretend to be gods, right? But there's only one creator. Trevor is saying, yes, Elon Musk had a sit down when OpenAI first launched, saying people are already cyborgs. What's that? Cyborgs. The first time hearing this word, because how much they are attached to technology, but we are in the analog stage, so to speak. Neuralink, and that's another thing. The Neuralink. How much of the Neuralink do you think is going to be placed in the AI? Is Neuralink, as we know it, being merged with AI? I want to know that. What do you think? Neuralink with AI. We know we also have the neurolinguistic programming. That's the NLP, designed to control people's minds, which they're already doing, right? So that is something that we have to understand. Remember, people, and I'm going to say this again. Human beings have 3 different realms. We live that, those are the 3. And whether you like it or not, it's real, right? We're physical beings, right? That's why we have to eat. We have to drink water, right? We're also mental beings. We think, we're intellectuals. We have a brain so we can think. Frontal lobe to reason. And we are spirits. That's why you talk about the soul. And sometimes people say, oh, he's a good soul or he's a bad soul, right? Because we have conscience, something that we can't see, something that we respond to, that we use our conscience to discern, or intuition. Okay? So when we talk about that, we're living in a world now that is so materialistic that all they think about is the physical, materialistic realm. Technology, and you have a job, and you have economic growth, and that is how you have abundance and prosperity. You don't need to think about your mental health, and that is one of the reasons why we have mental health too. People don't understand that the mind has to be fed and to be nourished. So what we put into our minds, what we read, right, what we eat also is going to affect our minds, our brains, okay? So what we watch, because do you know the brain is connected, the eyes are connected to the brain. Okay? So the fact of the matter is that we cannot deny, whether you deny that you could be agnostic and atheistic all you want to be. Nobody is really atheistic. Nobody is well, you might be agnostic, but even if you are agnostic, you believe in something. The human mind is trained for that. But you might not be one that want to discipline yourself, or you might not have identified what you believe in. Okay? But you believe in something. Whether it's a computer, whether it's your wife that you've idolized, or your husband, or your job, or your car, or the money that you have in your bank account. That could be your idol. That could be what you worship. Okay? Because that is what gives you security and makes you feel as if you are connected. Now we have Trevor saying in 2023, I saw a huge green circle above my home and about 3 more around it trailing back to the hills. My neighbors were the ones who brought it to my attention outside panicking. Wow, that would have been really frightening and disturbing for me. Right? Because already for me, just to sit in a house, right? A house where you are living by yourself and hear something, the rattle of the door or something, crackling sounds, it makes you nervous and on the edge. But when you're seeing things outside, literally with your human eyes, it's really, really scary, right? It's scary. How many of us grew up in the rural areas of our islands, right? I grew up in rural Jamaica. And people, I never saw a ghost, but people always said that they saw apparitions and whatever, and screaming that they saw these things. Right? So these things do happen, even though sometimes I must say that sometimes, especially when you have moonshine and you have the trees or the shadows, you can see, and people think it's something and it's not necessarily what they're thinking. But some people see things. Trevor saying it looked like a cloud or something hard to describe, but it was not moving. It looked solid, but still transparent. Interesting. And people always talk about lights, yes, and cloud when they're talking about seeing these apparitions. So yeah, something that we have to look. And it disappeared. Wow. Then it disappeared. Wow. So it was real. It was real. A cyborg is a man mixed with machine. Oh, that is what they call. So thank you for telling me that. That I never knew that's the word they use. A cyborg, a man mixed with machine, transhuman. Wow. And I think we are cyborgs here because when we look at people nowadays, that's what they look like. They look like machine merged with humans, right? Because they're always on their phones and never time to speak. The book of Jasher is 10 verse 12 to 13 and 2 Samuel 1 verse 18 to 27. If the Vatican omitted the book of the Jasher, I think it's a helpful book. And what does it teach us, Marie, in terms of last days events or something on morality? I would know. Do you have that book? That book? Could you, if you have a PDF, what do you call it now? Access to a PDF copy, please send it to my email, Marie. I would like to read it. And then we have Pedro Jamot, Trevor and I here saying trans equals to transhumans. And then we have Marie is correct. That's what Trevor is confirming what you've said, Marie. And then we have Marie. The other churches should not have listened to the Vatican in this regard. I think that the other churches would have done, though, Marie, a more, because the Vatican really doesn't know the Bible. They don't read the Bible because the Vatican, the Vatican's purpose is saying that it's above the church, it's above the Bible. It is God on earth. It said that it's the vicar of Christ on earth. So the Vatican, whatever the Vatican says, his words go above the Bible, above the church. So but the Protestants never believed that. They went down into a more deep search of the scriptures than you'd have the Catholic Church do, right? So the Catholic Church is not a Bible believing church. They pretend to be because that's how they deceive the world, but they're not. Marie saying that, thank you, I'm trying to, yes, yeah, please, if you can give me a copy of that, I'd love that. Remember, the church at the time was the judge, jury, and executioner. Absolutely. Similar to the government, still came back to control. The Renaissance period reveals the goals they had. And remember, too, the Vatican is political and it's a religious political institution. So it controls the politics. So it cannot, and one of the reasons we must understand the Bible cannot be an ordinary book. Because if the Bible were an ordinary book, why is it that during the Dark Ages, that was the book, the main book? There are other books too that were actually, censored and not for the people not to read. The people weren't allowed to read it, including right now in our times, the Catholic Church does not allow its parishioners to read the Bible. the priest is what, interprets for them what they should do, morality, and all of that. Okay, while the Protestant churches, they came with that ethos that you should search for yourselves. It shouldn't be the pastor to tell you what to believe, or the church per se. Yes, the church guide, but the church does not stand above the Bible. Another into the slavery. During slavery, why weren't the slaves allowed to read it? Or the slaves were allowed to go to church. Some people are saying, oh yeah, but they weren't allowed to read the Bible for themselves, right? So two things that were forbidden from the slaves: reading. They could not read because they know if they read, they would have become literate. And the Bible was the other book. In fact, there are two books that, was it Frederick Douglass said that all slaves should read, Free Slaves, were that book that was made by is a Huckleberry Finn. It was the thing on that book there that was written by, wow, what's her name again? I forgot her name. But the fact of the matter is that he told them that they should read the Bible. So if the Bible was a book that the slaves could not read, it meant that there was something in it that the slave masters wanted to hide, right? In the school system also, if we were all that democratic, and I'm not saying now that a teacher should go into classroom and tell students what to believe, but shouldn't we have, like, science should be evolution? So yes, the theory of evolution should be taught in schools, right? Because it's a secular school. But you should also have that there is another school of thought where the Bible says that the world was created. Now, the students can now decide if they want to follow what the Bible says, Christianist perspective, or they want to follow the scientific perspective. But in our schools today, they shove down the people the thing of the solution. And states, if you go to the United States, what they do there is that they have other religions like Islam and other religions that they teach in school, but the Bible cannot be taught. Right? Something is weird. Our society is weird. So the Bible is no ordinary book. And because if it were, why are they fighting so much against it? Then we have Transformers, lol. And we have, yes, I'm glad you are, yes. And then we have Trevor saying here, the book of Jasher expands of many things. Much of the main focus expanded details on Genesis, so Adam, Eve, etc., and a really cool account of Moses and the enslavement of the Israelites in Egypt. Okay, good. Do you have a copy of it, Trevor? If you have a copy of that book, I'd like to go through it. The book of Jasher. So you're saying that that is an apocryphal book, by the way. Yes. Okay, thank you for sharing that. And those of you, and maybe we can talk about that one of these days, the book of Jasher, to talk about the story of, you said it's a details, it gives more information on Genesis and also on Adam and Eve and Moses. By the way, one of the things that is cool also is when you read the Bible and you read like books like Shakespeare, works like Shakespeare and these, older British and English writers, American writers too, you tend to have a better understanding of literature, right? Because you've gone through those and they use a lot of, these writers use a lot of imagery, metaphors, and stuff like that from the Bible, So having an understanding of the Bible does help you to understand the world in which you live. The prophecies, history also, history, philosophy. When you read the book of, the book of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the wisdom that, is mentioned in those books, it is second to none. Yes, so we have, yes, I do. Yes, you should be able to find a digital. Okay, the digital form. So it's not, so in other words, it's not that it's hidden. These books are not hidden. The book of Enoch and the book of Jasher and all of these things, they're not hidden. They're there if you want to read them. It's that it's not a part of the 66 canon. And I would encourage all of us, including myself, to make sure we understand. Because let me tell you something. When you take up the book of, let us say, Ezekiel to read, it's not an easy book to read, and to understand. It's one to read it and say, wow, I saw 4 wheels, and you don't know what the 4 wheels represent. It's one to read a book of Shakespeare and say, oh, I've read all of the books, but have you really read his books, his works? And it means, therefore, that you are going to parse all of the metaphors and the themes and all of that stuff, the symbols, and many of us have not gone into that. Now, so I think we should challenge ourselves to make sure we know by heart the 66. By the way, there's a Barbadian, which I want to invite on the program. He's called Pastor Skeet. I have never seen anybody in this generation who he knows the Bible throughout, from Genesis to Revelation. How he does it, I don't know. And he also is able to memorize huge portions of, paragraph other, writers. That's from Barbados. His name is Randy Skeets. He is really a brilliant man. Humble, but a guy who really knows his Bible, right? And like very few of us, when you are beside that man, you feel like you don't know anything, because he has spent time studying the Bible, right? And he is really a wise man. Now we have here the Trevor saying, yes, that is why I encourage reading it, similar to Inflation Today. Would you believe that a similar way how their slavery began back then, nothing new under the sun? By the way, I'm reading through, as you said, that, Trevor, and I think I'm going to send you a copy. All of you, I could send you a PDF copy of the book that was written by Michael Hudson about Forgive Them Thy Debts. Now, debts there mean that those of us who are indebted to the IMF and to the World Bank, and he was using the biblical approach of Leviticus and Deuteronomy. He's a Christian, right? He's just because of his research and the fact that that the governments could be using the biblical approach, but they prefer not to use it, because if they were to do that, then many of us would not be still indebted to the IMF and to the World Bank, because we would have a year of jubilee. We would have, after 7 years, you set the debtor free, right? And that is what the whole matter of slavery in the Bible was talking about, because many people would sell themselves when they were owing money to people. They would sell their children into slavery, or sold themselves into slavery, so that they could work for the person to whom they were owing money or possessions, and they would have working and whatever. Now, our slavery, the transatlantic slavery, was brutal, as we see and I've said, because they didn't allow us that sort of indentureship where we could work our way into freedom. But back in the slavery of yesteryear, which some of it was also very brutal, but God said that they should free them. So God was actually instructing the slave masters that after they work and they've paid off their money, paid off our money to the IMF could sort of cancel our debt. What if they were to cancel all third world countries, members of the global south? Because we've been them for years now, and we've been paying them money, right? We've given them a lot of interest. They can cancel our debt now. They can give us debt forgiveness. Forgive them thy debt. So these are things that we can. The Bible has a lot of counseling that, had we taken these things seriously, our nation states would have been better, right? And we're not saying that they should become Christians. What we're saying, the principles outlined, if they were to help to govern people, then our nation states would have been better. Then we have sounds like photographic memory as well. Yes, he has. Do you know him? Randy Skeet. He's a Barbadian. I mean, he claims he does not have a photographic memory. I think he's very, he's very humble, modest, if you will. But he has a photographic memory, right? I hope he can come on our program one of these days. I've invited him because there's a lot we can learn from him. He's an extremely smart man. And then we have, you were sold in chains, right? You were sold in chains, right? So it was. I'm not saying now that I'm not excusing slavery, because slavery in all its form is wrong. Okay, I'm just saying that there are times, like back in ancient times, when people owed people money, they would sell themselves or their children into slavery so that they could work their way out of debt and they could be debt free. Okay, the slavery that was practiced for Black America, for Black people, we know that we were forced into it, and it was a thing where they told us that we were chattel, which was terrible, right? And I hope that Mr. Corbin from Barbados can come and talk to us about what is happening with the whole reparations. I'm asking him. Hopefully, he will consent. So stay tuned. One of these days, we'll ask him to come on the program to talk about what is happening with this reparations, because I understand that they're now they went to England and they're presenting their case. The Caribbean is presenting their case. Good to hear you define the difference in the word slavery. Often people think one way about it, but if you're in debt, what that makes you. Correct. We are slaves. Yeah. And that was what slavery was about in ancient times, right? That if you are, do you know that in the United States, I think up to correct me, those of you who know the history well, that I think it was up to the late 19th century in the United States, if you owed somebody, if you were in debt to somebody and you didn't pay them, you could be imprisoned, right? They could jail you. They could put you in jail. That's how serious they actually took, owing somebody money, right? So back in former times, they took debt. When you're in debt, they took it very seriously. I mean, we do too, because I guess they whatever, creditors, whatever. But the fact of the matter, it was more serious then, and you could be taken into slavery. Frederick is saying why they didn't remain an open colony, the debt would be to the crown. Well, remember too that the crown doesn't want us to be indebted to they didn't want us. Remember, we didn't come. Okay, by the way, let me just say this once and for all. The Caribbean did not become free or gain their independence because Great Britain wanted to give us independence. We became independent because there was no other choice. Great Britain, after World War II, had been completely damaged, and they essentially had died. The empire essentially had died. So they could no longer afford to have colonies. They kept a few, right? But they could not have all of the colonies that they used to have, like Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and all of that, right? So they asked our leaders, or then leaders, people like the Eric Williams and the Norman Manleys and all these people, they were the ones who negotiated the conditions in which the independence would have been earned or gotten, received, all right, obtained. So don't think that Britain gave us our independence. No empire gives you independence. You either have to earn it in terms of fighting for it, which we didn't. So the only way they gave it to us, because they could no longer afford it. And why not just tell us to go, right? And they gave us nothing. And we just had to start all afresh while they just went scot-free. And that's what they did. And that's why we are so underdeveloped in comparison to them, because they left us without anything. And after emancipation in the 19th century, remember now that we also had to pay them reparations for what they did to us. It's amazing, the injustice that took place and the exploitation. Trevor is saying, Pedro, they couldn't have that. They tricked you with independence since it sounds fancy. Because it's not independence. It's just that they could not, as I'm saying, we just said, go. I can't handle you anymore. Go. You're too much of a weight. But they did not really give us independence. It was not meant to be independent. And then we have Trevor saying only Haiti revolted and won, right? But remember too that all the countries know, the Santo Domingo also, revolted. So most countries in Latin America fought for their independence. I think we are the Anglo-Caribbean nations are perhaps the only ones which did not fight for independence, really, right? We didn't fight for independence. The British were too sophisticated in letting us think that we were free when we were not, right? But all the other countries, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, right? Most of them did fight for their independence. Colombia, Brazil, all of these Latin American countries, they fought, and Venezuela, and won their independence. We were just given independence on the silver platter. But as we're saying that it was not real independence, it was just because they had to say ta-ta, because they no longer could afford, to keep us, right? To pay the expenses for healthcare, education, and everything. Not that they were doing anything great for us, but they, it still was burdensome to them. Not even them. Semantics. And then we have Black liberators made it happen. Well, yeah, to some extent. Well, again, we're saying that it's not independence. So it's a for independence, but it's independence for whatever it is. We know that it's not real independence that we have in the Caribbean. When you have independence, you fight for it, and that's. But even the ones who fought for their independence, look at Haiti. Haiti fought for its independence tooth and nail, and they're still in their sort of, a sad state of affairs. Tomorrow, we are going to be looking at Miss Mia Motley and Ibrahim Traore, right? Ibrahim Traore, in terms of, are these people that we're hearing, they perhaps are the two most influential, talked about politicians in the global South, right? Make no bones about it, whether we like her or we like him or hate her. We know that these two politicians in the global South, in what we call the third world, are the two most influential and talked about politicians in the world. So we want to look at how are they similar, and how are they treading on a different path, or are they treading on the same path? That should be an interesting discussion. And please, let's come and discuss that, because it's a very interesting topic. We want to know, who is this Ibrahim Traore? Just as many of us wanted to know, we now know who is this Miss Mia Motley. We know her because we talk about her many times. But do we really know Ibrahim Traore, right? And we want to know him and this sort of charisma that he has, that Mia Motley has, and this sort of influence and the sort of craze that the Caribbean has for this, and the respect, adoration that the Caribbean has for this man, Ibrahim Traore, just like they have for Miss Mia Motley of Barbados. So we want to really talk about that. And if Fred is able to, Fred Corbin, then we can talk about the next day, the reparations, because he is writing to her, that's Fred Corbin, to Miss Mia Motley, about the hypocrisy of this reparations and what they're doing. And it's just filled with a lot of hypocrisy. And it's not really to help us. I mean, I wish it were, but it's not really to help us. So I want Mr. Fred Corbin, to come on and explain to us what he sees is the agenda of this movement, the reparation movement, this reparatory justice, as they call it, movement. And is it going to help us, or is it just something that we should, just think about, let it go, because it's nothing to help us. AI will teach you about him. You're right. I like that, because everything, I like that sarcasm, Pedro, because everything we learn about him is AI, right? It's from AI, because they all tell us that he's this savior, and every video that is published on YouTube gets millions of views or thousands of views, and it's all about his wonderful side, and he's going to be this great revolutionary. Yeah, but we and those of you who read, and I know Trevor and all of you here, Marie, and all of you, that you can come and let us know what is your perspective. By the way, anybody would like to join me tomorrow in leading all that discussion? Trevor, would you mind joining me to discuss that tomorrow with Pedro, with not Pedro, with what's his name, about Miss Mia Motley and Traore, Ibrahim Traore. Yeah, if you don't mind, but if you it's okay if you just simply remain there. But if you want to join me, anybody tomorrow wants to be a volunteer, Trevor, Marie, on the platform, in terms of discussing what you think about Miss Mia Motley and Ibrahim Traore. That should make a fantastic discussion, interesting discussion, because we know that these two people are quite influential. Are they misleading our people? Because thousands of people believe in Miss Mia Motley, and thousands do believe in the works of Ibrahim Traore. But what we want is a sort of dispassionate conversation in which we are not siding with any. We talk about the good points, the good sides of Miss Mia Motley, and her strengths and her weaknesses, and the same thing for Ibrahim Traore, his strength or his perceived strength, because we don't really know him. I think we know more about Miss Mia Motley because there's more information about her, and she is in the region. than we have Mr. Traore is far away from us. So, and there's not much written up on Mr. Traore, so we don't really know him per se more than what we see on social media. And as Pedro is saying, it's all these AI, a lot of them, not all of them, but most of them are AI generated videos, which really are not true. The truth about him came from YouTubers, no official source. Correct. Sean, that is correct. And that's what I've been digging, and you can't find anything substantive about him. He's a mysterious character, right? So we just have to, whatever information that we have access to, we are just going to use it and try to see if we can unravel. I want to stay away from the glorification and the adoration of him, just like the glorification and adoration of Miss Mia Motley, because they're not any saviors, right? And even if it were me or Pedro or Trevor, right, we are not any saviors. No politician is your savior. Never. When you're putting up a politician as your savior, you are crazy, right? Because no politician can be your savior. We are the ones who have to save ourselves. If you don't believe in God, I believe in God, so I will say only God can save us. But if you don't believe in God, we are the only ones who can save ourselves. So don't think that whether it's me or Marie or it is Trevor or any of us, if we were ever to go to that level, arrive at that level, we're going to be savers, because it's not going to happen, right? It's not going to happen, because the system that we are will be a part of, right? And it's either you play for the agenda or you go, or they will let you go. And Pedro is saying, we know he has no opposition, right? He has no opposition at all. But a part of that conversation, as we prepare for that conversation tomorrow, not Trevor, but Pedro, I would like to ask a question for tomorrow. Do we need sometimes a dictator, like a mild dictator? Because sometimes when I look at Jamaica, for example, I don't know about Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago, but when I look at Jamaica and the level of lawlessness that is there, sometimes I think a mild form of tyranny sometimes is necessary. And if you're going to, I shouldn't say tyranny, I should say probably dictatorship, right? Right? And if you're going to stand up to, like, the ilk of the United States, right, to these mighty empires, then you need a man like how are you going to stand up to them if you're not a strong military guy or woman, so to speak? Now, Trevor is saying, once I'm available in time, I'll be there. Yes, I definitely would like you to be there, because you always bring a lot balance to the program, right? Without you, and we must say we have to give him his credit, what you do, Trevor, here is invaluable, because you bring a lot of balance. And whatever you say, whether we agree or disagree, is well said, well written, and well thought about. We have to give you your props. So once I'm available in time, I'll be there. So Marie and Trevor, we depend on you to be here, and Pedro. And then we have only state media, right? He only depends on state media. And then we have reparations, this tool they use. Sean, welcome to the live. First time seeing you. If you're new, hope you're subscribing to our channel. Would like to have you. Reparations is a tool they use to get that demographic to vote for them. Yes, that's exactly what they're doing. They're using the reparations. And the reparations is not reparations to invite Mr. Fred Corbin to come and let us know. And has anyone used Trevor, have you read the reparations document that they took to England? Not really. I think it was 57 days of reading. I think we should read it. We can also come with questions if Mr. And if he doesn't come on the platform, if Fred is not able, is not available, we're going to have a discussion anyway, because we are qualified just like him to have. If it's available, we'll have it amongst ourselves too. But if he's available, we have him on platform. Democracy is mild dictatorship. It is. It is. It is. Or at least our form of, because, by the way, I tell people, you can't do anything that you want to do. One thing, I was teaching a Sabbath school one morning in the States, and I told them, and they looked at me like, what are you saying? I said, God about that. I'm not sure. I'm back. Sorry. Let's count down now, and we can move on. So tomorrow we'll look at that topic. We'll look at the topic and of Traore and Miss Mia Motley. It's at 4 tomorrow, guys. 4 p.m. So try to be on time tomorrow at 4. Okay. See you then. All the best to you. Bye bye.